to Jonathan Taylor. Huge hole. He's at the 30. He's going to go. 10, 5, touchdown. Jonathan Taylor made a man miss the line of scrimmage and then runs it into pay dirt for a one-handed INT. Are you kidding me? Kenny Moore.
What a play by Nyheim Hines.
Horseshoe is back, baby. The horseshoe is back.
What's going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Bring the Juice Colts podcast. Got my friend Lawrence Owen joining me today as well. Today, guys, we're going to just break down a couple of these picks that the Colts had for their 2020 NFL draft, and we're going to ask Lawrence to help us grade each and every one of these. The Colts ended up having 7 picks. Won in almost every round except for the third round, but acquired an extra 7th with a trade back in the 6th. So I guess we'll hop right into this here, and we'll go ahead and start with the first pick, and that was Quitty Pay Defensive End from Michigan. You know, it's quite surprising to see a few people in the national media, Lawrence, say how this really wasn't a great pick at first, but it's like, you know, a lot of boards had Quitty Pay going in the top 15. You know, given his size and his strength and what he's able to do. I mean, I think they said, yeah, he actually had a faster 3-cone drill than Tyreek Hill. He actually had one of the fastest 3-cone drills that were ever done when it was tested. So for a guy that's 260 pounds to do that, I mean, shows you the versatility and the athleticism of somebody like this. So how would you grade this pick for Indy?
Honestly, I mean, I had Pay as my number 2 pass rusher. I had Phillips number 1, but as we know, Phillips was drafted right, 3 picks before him. Pay dropping 40 time is not that big important for a defensive end because they're not running 40 yards generally, right? But that 3-cone drill shows his stop and go ability, which is incredibly important. Change of direction, incredibly important for Pay. He did excellent in both of those. He's a big dude. Can get to the passer pretty quick. I actually love this. I love this pick. For him to fall to the Colts at 21, I thought was a blessing. I kind of feel very similar to way a lot of the Colts organization says, where this was a BPA need, both at the same time. When you got a guy with his talents dropping to a position of need, it's a no-brainer. And I feel like this was a great pick by the Colts.
So you giving it an A-, A plus? We giving it a B? What are you thinking?
I'll give it just a straight A. I mean,
straight A? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the only way an A plus would have happened is if like a top 2 left tackle fell or Phillips fell. But that this is in a situation we still have yet to see how Pay works out, because the only thing that's holding me back a little bit is Pay still has a little bit of need. As I was breaking down his film, he still has a lot of work to do when it comes to actual pass rush moves. But I think that he's got all the tools and the abilities to learn those at an NFL level.
Well, when you got guys like Robert Mathis and Dwight Freeney saying they're going to be supporting him, I mean, what better guys to learn from to kind of learn how to develop a pass rush move than those two. So yeah, I mean, the future's bright for Pay as long as he looks to try to work hard to get that move, and I think he will. All right. So the second round pick, and this one was a little bit more controversial for a couple people, was Dayo Odeyingbo. It was the defensive end, basically just defensive lineman for Vanderbilt. I don't like saying edge rusher because even though he spent the majority of his time at defensive end, this is a guy that lined up at practically every spot at Vanderbilt. He played on the inside, played on the outside, had a good versatility about him. Now, I think the majority of people were saying, well, why did the Colts decide to double dip with the first and then the second rounder? Everyone would have said, well, he could have gotten another guy in a later pick and, could have done something there. But again, the Colts expressed how they really felt about Dayo. I mean, this guy really is an athletic specimen that nobody really has seen. I think they actually said his wingspan is the longest wingspan for a defensive lineman that's ever been tested Like, he's extraordinarily long. And, for before he obviously went down in January, I mean, this guy had really good athletic traits. I mean, it's just stuff that you can't teach. It's just something you're born with. And this guy just has it. And, they said, oh, we were afraid he was even going to fall this long despite the injury. So, a little concerning there. But how would you grade this pick, Lawrence? I mean, some people said they could have went back further and gotten him. I mean, and Colts were actually thinking they may not even get him at all. But what would you grade this pick?
All right. So this is a situation where it's going to be tough. I can't give him a high grade because he's injured. He does have a lot of tools because I'm currently doing a film room on him as well. And as I've gotten through, I don't know, a couple games, and he is explosive. All right. When I say like unbridled explosive, it's almost like he's not fully in control of himself, but he's so violent when he makes contact to get past that blocker that it's almost impossible for a blocker to really get a true hand on him. Again, a guy who I think could increase his pass rush moves, get a little bit more under control. But yeah, his length, his size, his speed, his strength, everything about him is just unbelievable in my opinion. The thing that's bothering me, and it bothered me the entire time, was I feel that the Colts could have moved up 4 spaces, right? I feel like the Colts should have and could have moved up with the Giants. I don't know if they attempted to, right? But they could have traded up with the Giants and got Sam Cosmi, which I believe could have been a good, solid left tackle for the Indianapolis Colts. Now, as with the interview that we had earlier, he straight said, we had some guys selected we were going to pick, and then they just got picked right before we were picking. I am assuming that Sam Cosmi is probably one of those guys, right? But again, another guy that probably could have been there that they might have picked was maybe Walker Little, or Liam Eckenberg, which also was picked, middle of the second round. And they just didn't want to move up because they didn't have that many picks to start off with. Mm-hmm. But the injury and the rawness kind of brings back this pick a little bit. I give this pick a C, not for what he potentially can do. It's what he's going to be able to provide right away in this year. Because when you pick someone in the second round, generally you want someone in the second round that you're going to pick to be impactful year one. And he's not going to be impactful, I don't believe, in year one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'd probably give it a C+, just kind of like what you said, for the general reasons of, and Ballard mentioned it, that, this isn't about a first year sort of process. Ballard likes to pick for long-term because he doesn't like to, just get guys that try to help out right away. That's what he likes to do. Build through the draft, get your own guys, somebody you feel you can grow into it. I mean, I think a lot of Colts Nation agrees that, if this guy comes back healthy and is back to his former self and what he could become, I mean, this could become an A draft pick if we think what he's able to do. But like you said, it's just, we don't know anything about it yet.
Well, before the injury, he was graded by multiple people as a first-round draft pick, and a lot of people comped him to Chandler Jones, right?
Yeah.
Very similar size, strength, length, arm length, stuff like that. His violentness, still, Chandler came in a little underdeveloped, and same with Deo. So, yeah, I see what Chris Ballard and company likes in the kid. It's just a second round pick. You want to be able to be, helping the team year one. And he's not going to be ready week one, let alone, get into the groove throughout the season. I just, long term, love the pick. Short term, not so much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know what? If he's getting comped to Chandler Jones, that's a very nice comp to have for a defensive player like that. All right, so we move all the way to round 4 now, pick 127. Colts select tight end Kylan Granson out of SMU. There were a couple tight ends on the board in round 4 that everybody's saying, oh, who comes here? Tommy Tremble got picked earlier in the 3rd round. And then Brevin Jordan's name was up there. A lot of people talked about him. And then, we selected Kylan Granson. And Cody and I were like, wow, so Kylan Granson, we selected a tight end, but not the tight end that a lot of us were expecting. But, Kylan Granson, a slightly smaller guy at the position, but with his athletic ability and due to how well he catches and makes plays after the catch, is a tight end hybrid that can kind of move out if you need him to. And, just a guy that really resembles what they're trying to get out of an athletic. Jim Irsay mentioned in the offseason, we want to get a game-changing tight end here. We want to get a playmaker. And, that's what they brought Trey Burton in for last year. They felt that there were times that he was able to do that. But I think even so, Granson's slightly bigger than Burton, has the same ability, actually a little more athletic. So what did you think here, Lawrence? What grade would you give us getting Granson here in the 4th round?
All right, so when they selected Granson, I was like, At first I was thinking, maybe he's kind of like Trey Burton, right? And then I went and I looked at the film, and he's not like Trey Burton. The drop issues, that he has occasionally, those come from the fact that he is one of those guys that want to catch and run. He's looking for the yards after the catch. I think that can be coached out of him to make sure that he has the ball first. But what is really impressive to me is his ability to change directions and stop and go at top speeds. It is unbridled. He's more like a Zach Ertz than a Trey Burton, right? Okay. So that's what I really like this pick. If they could just get him to look the football in coaching during the offseason, more so than worrying about getting that yards after catch, because you hit it on the head. If he catches the football, he's a danger to take it all the way to the house, because there's no linebacker that can cover him. Not many, anyhow, in the NFL. And safeties, he's just bigger than most safeties. So, he's got a wider catch radius. So I love the pick. I give it a B+. Believe it or not, it wasn't a super position of need, but it's one that I think he will fill a role with the Colts, and he'll get his targets this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And Granson was asked about the drop issues that was labeled on him. He said that really it was only one game for him that really messed him up, and that was the Cincinnati game. He accepts that game was really bad for him. And he said outside of that, he doesn't feel he has a drop issue, has a couple of them here and there. But he said that he says the Cincinnati game really kind of put that mark on him. So, for any Colts fans that wonder about the drop issue, he says that it was really just one game for him that kind of made it worse. I give it a B, because like you said, it was not a position of need necessarily, but it could really be a good upgrade at the position for, because we're still trying to find that true receiving tight end that, we had with Eric Ebron when Andrew Luck was there, and you saw what they were able to do and connect with. So, you could see it from Granson and Wentz. I definitely see that as a dynamic duo at some point. But now we'll move to round 5, pick 165. We selected Sean Davis, safety out of Florida. So now the Colts have 2 Sean Davises on the roster. Ironically enough, both of them play safety. And ironically enough, both of these guys might end up playing special teams at some point. So that is going to be something we're going to have to figure out. How we're going to decipher those two. And ironically enough as well, Sean Davis plays a lot like the other Sean Davis from former Pittsburgh player. They're aggressive. They do have the ability to make some plays in coverage, although sometimes I would say this, the Sean Davis we acquired in free agency, I feel is a much better tackler than the Sean Davis we drafted. Sean is aggressive, but half the time loses a couple of tackles because of bad angles and just not getting the proper angle that he needs to make that tackle. But nevertheless, had 40 tackles, 2 interceptions this last year, has had 5 interceptions in his 3 years with Florida, so has that ability to make that play. We kind of anticipated this happening. We still need some safety depth, and, this guy could eventually be that. So what grade would you give Sean Davis here out of Florida?
All right, so this kid is definitely going to be on special teams. He's going to be on your kick and punt return coverages without any question. You know how much the Indianapolis Colts love their special teams. It played a huge part in all their games last year. And I believe that Sean's going to be one of those gunners. I think he's going to be opposite Odom in this situation. He's a popper. He's a guy that pops right off. Every time he lands a hit, it's huge. I think there will be some opportunities for him to get a few snaps this season in situations where there's going to be a run. Believe it or not, I think that you could bring him in on short yardage situations where, obviously we have Kari Willis, we have Blackman, but what if they've been on the field a while and we're in a short yardage situation? You could bring Sean Davis in and he will fill that role perfectly fine. Davis, he's got room to grow. As you said, he's shown on tape that sometimes he does take bad angles and sometimes he misreads plays as they're developing. Well, it's a 5th round pick. What do you expect?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You're not going to get a polished player in the 5th round, but I like the pick. Could we have went other places? Maybe, but again, depth is a very important position with the safety, wide receiver, tight end, safety, cornerback. Those are all positions that I felt like the Colts could have added depth in this draft, and they definitely did. So, I'm going to give this a B minus, somewhere around in that general vicinity. I think they could have went a couple other places as well, but I'm not really going to hate on the pick because I like the player and what he represents.
Yeah, for the reasons that you said, I'll give this a C+. I felt that there were a lot of different places that the Colts could have went with this pick. But like you said, Sean Davis plays the way that, the Colts want their safeties to play, wants them to play aggressive, wants them to play in that specific way. Guys that are not afraid to make contact, come down and make contact, which, if the Colts feel they can help him with his angles and how to fix that, then I believe that that's exactly why they picked him. All right, so the most controversial pick of the whole draft. Now, I don't necessarily know why this is controversial, but it's, according to Colts Nation, it's controversial. And with the 6th round pick at 218, where the Colts traded back from 206, Colts select Sam Ellinger, quarterback out of Texas. Now, I kind of already gave my thoughts as to why I don't think this is controversial, because right now, currently, the Colts only have 2 quarterbacks on the roster. You have Carson Wentz, and then you have Jacob Eason. And, the Colts have already said it multiple times, Lawrence, that, Jacob Eason isn't ready. Jacob Eason's not ready to lead this team right now. He's got some more time to learn. And, you're getting a quarterback that's going to fill out the quarterback room. They've now addressed that spot. Was it early in the draft? Did they really need to go with Sam Ellinger at this spot? Yeah, I thought that it was early, no question. But, I said it in the video earlier that I thought Sam Ellinger, which could make this interesting, I can make this point, that I think Sam Ellinger has a very strong chance to pass Jacob Eason in the quarterback room, because Sam Ellinger plays a lot more of the way that Frank Reich wants to use a quarterback than Jacob Eason really is. Eason's got a little bit stronger of an arm, but Ellinger's a lot more of an athletic guy that can go get runs after. He can run the RPOs. He's done a lot of that at Texas versus Jacob Eason, has had that kind of offense that he's run. I just see him as a more Carson Wentz type quarterback than what Jacob Eason would become. But that's either here nor there. That's probably going to be years down the line, so we don't have to worry about that. But how would you grade the Colts selecting a quarterback here in the 6th round instead of maybe potentially addressing it later?
It's the end of the 6th round, and you're not going to get a lot of high-end players in the NFL in the 6th round, right? And they had him on the draft board, which is a big point in and of itself. You put a quarterback on your draft board, then that means that there's something about that guy you like a lot. And Sam, his arm talent isn't near Eason's, right? Or yeah, his arm talent isn't nowhere near Eason's. He doesn't put enough under the ball when he throws it, and his deep ball accuracy could be a little bit better. He also likes to play hero ball a lot. Now, as Colts fans, we're used to that with Andrew Luck, right? We're used to that hero ball mentality, but with Frank Reich, it seems like he doesn't really go that direction. So I thought that was a little bit odd with a selection with Frank Reich wanting him. But yeah, you're right. He is more of a Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz liked to play hero ball in Philly. He does move around a lot better than what Eason does. He's much more athletic. He's not your prototypical pocket quarterback the way Eason is. And he does know his way around a pocket, though. He's not one of those guys that'll just, one little slight of pressure and he's out of the pocket instantaneously, which is a plus because it's really hard to get a quarterback out of that. So there are things to work with Ellinger from what I see on tape of him. I think this is a good pick. I really do. I think that this is a quarterback that could have been picked a round or two earlier, in my opinion. Not necessarily by the Colts, but I'm just saying from his draft prospect view. I don't have a problem with it. The Colts need a third quarterback. You need a practice squad quarterback. You need a quarterback who, we play in a division, in a conference, mind you, that has Allen, right? That has Mahomes, that has Jackson, that has Watson, right? Guys that can move and run really well. And I think he does this style of play a lot better even than Carson Wentz does. So I think this is a situation, I believe, that it was actually smart move just for having the scout team situation. So I don't, when you think of it that way, against the Bills, right? We had an issue being able to hold Allen in. That was the big problem in that AFC game, that playoff game. And I think Ellinger is a guy that can play on the snap team or on the scout team against the defense, so that they can kind of get a little bit more understanding of what to expect. So yeah, I actually like this pick more than what a lot of other people do, because again, we need a third quarterback and somebody to push Eason. And I think he does that. So I'll give it a C+.
Yeah, I'm going to give this a B-. I think that it, like you said, for scout team purposes, I think he does fit the part very well of, being that quarterback that has the tendency to escape the pocket, try to make his own play. I think that's great for, giving a defense a chance to kind of adapt to how that works. Yeah, it's really awesome to see him. You were in the room with Kevin Rogers when we were talking about this pick, and I asked him about him, and he said, he has that it factor. That's the whole reason why the Colts ever select a guy, is that they have to fit their scheme, they have to fit their culture in the locker room, and they have to be a winner. They got to have that it factor. And he said that Sam has that, and they feel they can really tap into that at some point. And, it says a lot for, a quarterback like that. So with 11 picks later, though, in the 7th round here, Colts had 2 picks here. And this is one that I really, really like. And that is Mike Strocken, is a wide receiver out of Charleston. This one is very interesting, played at D2, but nevertheless, it doesn't matter what division you're playing at. This guy dominated Division II football, okay? This guy had 78 catches for over 1,300 yards, and it was almost 10 touchdowns. This guy was just dominating. And when you're 6'5", and you're 225 pounds, so this guy's bigger than Michael Pittman, first off. And, has a 40 time that is pretty much similar to Michael Pittman's as well. I actually thought his 40 time was actually faster than Pittman's. He actually ran in the 4.3s once before. They said that when he did his pro day, he did the bench press and then immediately after went to the 40 time, didn't give himself time to rest and do it. So they said his 40 time was actually slower than what he normally has it. So, but I mean, at his pro day ran what was it, a 4.46 or something. So, that was really freaking good. But I mean, this guy, an athletic freak. We kind of saw this last year where Desmond Patman was selected, big guy that we thought could really come in and do something. I mean, there's not much more you can say about this guy. I mean, he really dominated, and I'm very excited to see if the Colts can get something out of him. What would you give this grade for Mike here in the 7th round?
7th round is for guys that have really high upside, but can be a complete bust as well, right? You're betting on their strengths, and that's exactly what this pick is. He's got all the prototypical things that you are looking for from a wide receiver physically. That's what he's got. Again, Division II football. So his competition wasn't that great, but again, when you're grabbing a Division II guy, you're looking for somebody that will dominate that division, and that's what he did. The one issue I have with him is he does not use. I've got 2 issues. One, he doesn't use his body well. He is a big dude, but he doesn't use his size and weight and stuff in blocking as well as you would like. Okay, and one blocking, which is what you would expect from a guy his size. And he doesn't use his body well to block out defenders in the passing game as well. Now, these are things that can be taught. In Division II, it might not have had coaching in order to do that. Probably wasn't needed, because the competition wasn't there for him to have to develop these tools. So in the NFL, you figure he's probably not going to get a lot of snaps year one. I think his year one, he's probably going to have to develop a lot of these things, and that's fine. It's a 7th round pick. That's what they're there for. The second thing that I don't like about him, and again, something that he could be to learn, is his breaks. All right. He doesn't dig well when it comes to making his breaks. From what I'm seeing, anyhow, I didn't get a lot. I did watch about half a game of his. And from what I saw from his route running, it's a little loose. And I'm not a huge fan of loose route running.
When you're that big, I mean, that's sometimes, especially in Division II, like you said, I mean, he wasn't taught a lot to do that, especially when you're that big. That is hard to learn to do something unless you specifically take the time throughout your seasons to learn how to do that. So.
But the beautiful thing is both these things that I am not overly high on with him are coachable, right? Yeah. Perfectly coachable. It's those intangibles, this body size and strength and hands and arm length and weight and all that, the way he moves, the way he tracks a football. He tracks football incredibly well. Those things are intangibles that generally aren't taught. And in my opinion, this is a very good move, again, for depth at wide receiver. Another position, like I said, that could use the depth. Don't necessarily need it right away because we have 4, in my opinion, starters at wide receiver. So, give him a year and a half. He could turn out to be a huge boon for this offense. Or if he doesn't, it was a 7th round pick. It was worth taking a chance.
Yeah, I mean, because, like you said, I mean, T.Y. Hilton's not going to be around for very long. Who knows how Paris Campbell's going to turn out if he ever stays healthy at all. That could end up being a bust. We don't know. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, and we've seen, especially the Colts wide receiver group has, had a lot of unfortunate injury history with it. So, it's always helpful to have a couple extra guys in the back seat waiting. So
yeah, I don't think that this guy was going to last long. I understand that it was early, 7th round, first pick. I don't think he was going to make it to undrafted free agent. I think somebody was going to grab him.
Gotcha.
So in my opinion, it's a B+ because If you like the guy, you like the abilities that he has, and you think there is a chance for him to develop and grow into a player, you want to grab him before letting him get into UDFAs, because you're fighting with 32 other teams.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so last pick here, and how to make sure I get the pronunciation on his last name right. Somebody mentioned it to me in the comments. It's actually Will Freeze. It's not Fries. You know, even though it's said that way. I mean, it looks that way. So, you know, of course, everybody says that right off the bat. But Will Freeze, it was a guard / tackle from Penn State. Say guard / tackle because he did a little bit of both while at Penn State. Was drafted as a tackle because he spent the last year playing tackle. So there's ups and downs when it comes to Will. Has actually allowed 17 sacks and about 1,500 passing snaps. You know, it's not too terrible, giving up a sack a little over 1% of every single snap that he has. So, I mean, you know, it's not a terrible look. I mean, it's higher than what you would expect, but then again, it's a 7th round pick. A lot of these guys are giving up numerous amounts of sacks. But, I mean, when you look at this guy athletically, he's actually a very athletic guy. I mean, he had a really, really solid vertical and broad jump, so shows a lot of great flexibility in his hips. It's exactly what you want. Had a good shuffle time as well, so that's, again, something you really want to see in an offensive lineman. He's 6'6", 310 pounds, so he's even bigger than Rashawn Slater if you want to look at it from a number standpoint. Zack Hicks from Stampede Blue actually said he actually had him graded as a 4th round offensive lineman. So he was ecstatic when the Colts were able to pick this guy up in the 7th round. Mm-hmm. I mean, we kind of threw it out a little bit there. Could Freeze at some point become the future left tackle for us? Well, certainly he's got the intangibles to do it. I mean, you know, he's got some experience there, but he's going to have to be taught a lot. But nevertheless, I think a lot of people were actually happy at the place that we were able to select him at. What would you grade this for this selection here?
Again, situational. He's very athletic. He's got experience playing across the line. The only issue I have really with him is he doesn't have a lot of pop in his blocks, and he's not overly strong. Right. Yeah. So any stronger guys are just going to bowl right over. He kind of reminds me of Joe Haeg. Okay. Guys, a lot of Colts fans like Joe Haeg. He was able to move all across the board. But again, a guy who didn't really have a lot of pop, right, when it come to blocking, but he was technically sound and he could hang with a lot of your quicker guys. So I kind of like that. Again, he could hit the weight room. You know, that's no big deal. That's something that can be fixed rather easily with the correct diet and working out. So yeah, I kind of agree with Zack Hicks that he could have went much earlier than he did. I think he was overlooked a little bit. Yeah. This is an A- pick for me. Again, this is not an immediate fill. He's not going to start week 1. He's not going to start this year. And if he does, then it's something terrible has happened, right? In my opinion, which we don't want to see. But I think it's a situation you might see him on special teams, you know, blocking out there on the edge on field goals or punts or something. I really believe that this kid could develop into either a quality backup. Generally, one of those guys, I think he could develop into a Joe Haeg role where he's a quality backup where he could fill in anywhere along the line that if he needs to, much more so than Pinter, in my opinion.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this one, but overall draft grade. Obviously, I know you have some more time to kind of learn more about these guys, but as it sits right now, day after the draft is over, what's your overall draft grade for the Colts here?
We got a B-. We got just about every most of the positions that we needed. We doubled up on defense early, which means, you know, it sounds to me like they're wanting to establish that defense. If you can't get a left tackle, the best way to protect your quarterback, in my opinion, is make it so he don't have to go out there and play hero ball, right? If you got a good defense, then that's one way of going about it. so that he don't have to go out there and score 30, 35 points a game to win. I like the draft. I understand that, prototypical left tackles just didn't quite fall at the positions that was needed for the Colts, and that's why they weren't selected. Sometimes drafts happen that way, and it sucks. But when it does, and you just have to live with it and ride with the flow. And that's what Ballard and company did. So I give them a B- overall.
Yep, I'm going to go the same thing with you. Defensive-wise, addressed a lot of positions there. Couple different playmakers on the offensive side that they felt they could use. So, yeah, I'll go B- as well. Well, thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Shout out to my guy Lawrence for helping me with this again. Thank you all for tuning in. Let us know what you guys thought and give us your overall grade for the draft as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And as always, go Colts.